Now it's time for Perspective, and if you come on a visit to Paris, you may well notice that it has a pretty thriving comedy scene. What is great for that comedy scene, at least for us Anglophones, is that there's also a thriving stand-up comedy scene here in English, and one of those making waves is Sarah Donnelly. She's an American comedian, screenwriter, podcaster, and, as she puts it, extremely funny woman living here in Paris. She's even open for the likes of Jerry Seinfeld. Sarah's recently released her first one-hour comedy special, The Only American in Paris. It's available on her YouTube channel. Before we talk, and she'll laugh again, I'm sure, let's have a bit of a listen.
I've been living in Paris for over 10 years, as I mentioned, and I love living in Paris. I really, really do. And I love French people. You guys should not be so scared. I really do. I love French people. You guys are so cute. You're adorable, especially when you have to speak English. Because fast, you get so nervous. I'm just like, hello. And you're like, I don't speak very well the English. I am shit. I'm like, oh, honey, relax. I'm not going to treat you like you treat me when I speak French. Where is the lie? Oh my gosh. It's adorable. But it's so funny because French people online, that's where you like to lie about your English abilities. Like on LinkedIn or a dating profile, you're like, I'm just going to write fluent. How are they going to know? We're going to know, okay? We will know. That's why, has anyone here ever tried to find an English-speaking doctor in this town on Doctolib? Yeah? Because apparently on Doctolib, they all speak English. Until you get to their office and you're like, I think I have a yeast infection. They're like, ¿Cómo?
Sarah Donnelly there. Sarah, I had a lot of fun yesterday afternoon trying to find a clip. To be honest, it was broadcastable because there's quite a lot of swearing in the act.
Yeah, sorry, that stand-up comedy, or it's 9:30 in the morning. Stand-up comedy is not usually an early morning activity, so.
No, it's very, very, very true. I mean, it's kind of part of the natural way that people talk, though, isn't it? I mean, that's what people say, particularly when they're taking the mickey out of people.
Yeah, exactly. You gotta throw in some good swears. You're English, come on. You love swearing.
Never. We never swear. It's full of energy, isn't it? Tell us about the act.
Well, the show, The Only American in Paris, it's about my life living in Paris for the past 12 years and counting. And let me tell you, when you're a foreign person living in Paris, there's a lot of comedy. So it's just about me learning French, engaging the French culture. I've got a French husband. I got a French kids. The jokes are writing themselves at this point. Like all the mistakes that I've made, I'm constantly humbled by the French language. I'm learning something every day.
And presumably every day you could learn something new that you could then put into your act.
Honestly, as a stand-up comedian, when you're out in the world, like the most embarrassing thing that happens to you in a day, a lot of other people be like, I'm never going to talk about that. And for me, I'm like, that's going into the comedy act. Like you're cringing as it's happening to you and you're going, this is going to be great on stage. So.
It's very relatable, isn't it? But I mean, perhaps it's particularly relatable for Anglophones like us who've moved to Paris, who aren't from here in the first place, because there's all sorts of little things that, like what you said about Doctolib, which is the online service for finding a doctor. You know, they all say we speak English, but then when you
show up,
they don't really.
They don't speak English. Yeah. They just love to say they speak English. I'm like, watching all 10 seasons of Grey's Anatomy does not mean you speak medical English, sir. Yeah, so.
It's difficult, isn't it? What about flipping it on its head, let's be honest, us Anglophones are not always that great about speaking French either, are we?
We're not great speaking French, but we try. We've got the passion, we've got the energy. But as I talk about my show, if you make one faute in French people are just like, we have no idea what you're talking about. What? What are you saying?
Well, perhaps it's up to us to speak French, but it's not necessarily up to the French to speak English.
They could make a little bit more effort trying to understand what we're saying. As I say in my special, I have a joke about I get an article wrong. I say le instead of la, and they're just like,
oh. Can't do that.
Couldn't figure it out.
I get this every day, trying to work upstairs. You draw a lot on being an American here in Paris. I mean, what is it like, do you think, being an American person living in Paris?
Well, being an American in Paris, historically, you know, it's kind of the dream. We have all these famous Americans who've come before, and then the most famous American in Paris right now is Emily.
Is Emily,
Is
exactly.
Emily.
Yeah.
She's really claimed it. And she's given us maybe a bad name, or maybe we've always had a bad name. It's a tough time to be American in general right now. And so I am so happy to be in France for no particular reason.
Because your husband is French, isn't he?
Yes, he is.
He is French.
Yeah.
Okay. And you've been married a long time? You've known each
We've
other
been
a long
together
time?
for a long time. And now I'm French, actually.
Okay.
And I talk about this in the show. It's a full journey of me becoming French. And then finally, my most French act is getting the passport and my passport photo.
I did the same thing about
So-
5 years ago, and I can, obviously know what that process is like as well, because it's very difficult, isn't it? But how do you bring up your children? What's the way of bringing up children in that kind of American-French relationship? But
Oh
living
my
in
gosh. Well, I thought I was going to have bicultural children, like French-American children. My children are extremely French. The American side seems to have drifted away. Even my youngest, she doesn't speak barely any English. And as I say in the special, her first 2 words were no and. Can I say the word?
Shh, no one listen. Yeah. Very rude. I know what it was, even if the audience.
Well, you got to watch the special to get the unedited version.
Yeah. So they don't speak English at all. So you don't speak English at home?
No, they do speak English, but it's a franglais.
difficult.
It's a
Yeah.
full mix. And I like to joke, my oldest as well, she speaks great English, but when she speaks English, when she's in her English speaking mode and she drops in a French word, she says the French word in an American accent. So she'd be like, Mommy, I want my goûter.
Yes, I know.
She can say
Yeah.
it correctly, but
The best phrase one of my daughters was, Daddy, Daddy, I've done a caca in my couche, which means, Dad,
Yeah.
I've done something in my nappy, my diaper, if
Yeah.
you're American. Who is your audience? I mean, are you aiming at French people? Are you aiming at Anglophones?
my audience is anyone who likes stand-up comedy. So if you like comedy, if you like a laugh, whether you're French, English, American, those are my people. And I actually have a lot of French people coming to the shows. The French love stand-up. They love comedy, actually.
Do they get it, though? Do they understand it? Because it's very much from an Anglophone point of view.
Yeah, they do. Because my show, it's not, some people say, you talk about French people, it's the French bashing. It's not French bashing. It's actually, I love France. I love being in France. I love being French as well. And so this show is like a love letter to France and everything that I love. So if you're a Francophile, you're French, if you're just curious to know what it's like to be a girl trying to make her way in Paris with all the mistakes, I've done them all. So you can watch the show.
Because it's American bashing as well, isn't it? I mean, you take the mickey out of Americans as well.
Well, we got to. I mean, come on. Look at us. Look at us. Jesus, we need to be making fun of ourselves. It's a rough time right now, so we all could use a laugh. And better that I do it and talk about Americans than
Doing that.
the rest of the world who's also laughing at us.
You spend a lot of time writing as well, don't you?
Yeah.
And which do you prefer? Is it the writing, is it the preparation, or is it the being up on stage?
I mean, I think as a stand-up, the performance, that is the best part. Truly. Getting on stage, you're discovering your audience. Stand-up comedy is a dialogue with an audience. So I'm telling my joke, I'm seeing how you're responding. But the writing process is really fun. Creating the show, I'm working on a television show, creating your world and your characters. So I do love both. But yeah, getting in front of a live audience, there's nothing like it. And you never know what's going to happen. You never know who's going to be in the audience. You never know what someone can say. So it's really fun.
Yeah, is that difficult when you get a heckler and which language they're speaking as well?
Well, I find we don't get a lot of hecklers. People are very polite, actually, in Paris. Polite audiences. I did get a French heckler, but the easiest way to destabilize a French heckler is just start shouting at them in English. Because then they feel they have something to prove in English, and then they're on their back foot. So
Then they're lost.
Yeah, then they're lost. And FU is universal term. People really understand that. So.
Okay. We'll leave you with that wonderful way of thinking of it, F-U. And Sarah, thanks very much for coming in and talking to us.
Thanks so
Sarah
much for
Donnelly.
having me.
An American in Paris. There you go. There it is, the only American in Paris. Thanks very much.
Cheers. Thank you.